welcome back to the Winning Season Podcast. Y'all, it is time to switch it up a little bit. Let me give you some backstory. Winning Season Podcast has over 200 episodes. I've talked a lot about soft skills, negotiating your salary, executive presence, how to deal with difficult people. The list is endless, really, 200 episodes in. A couple of weeks ago, I sent a voice note to a friend, and I said, hey girl, I want your advice. I'm thinking about switching up the pod and giving more of a professional girlfriend type of vibe. Still calling the podcast Winning Season, but focusing on the win in any season. So let me go deeper into my backstory. There have been times in my life where I have identified as a workaholic, an overachiever, a go-getter, a goal setter. The list can go on and on. I have had times where I've had extreme highs and I have had very low moments. And I wasn't always present in those moments because I was just trying to get to the next thing. Over the past few weeks, maybe a few months now, I received questions for the Ask Jacqueline segment of the podcast. Sometimes I don't fully unpack the answers to those questions or answer it the way I would if I was talking to my girlfriend because I'm structured in this podcast format and I got to keep it to a minute or two to answer. And one episode, a few pods back, I actually did a full episode where I answered someone's question. And it felt really good to be able to give someone the advice I wish I had when I was at those various stages of my career to help me find the win in any season. And that's where the podcast is headed. Let's take this question that I received. We're in the middle of a VUCA series. Today's question: how do I navigate a VUCA environment when it feels like the complexity is coming at me from all directions, including me? So let's talk about it, because sometimes the chaos outside is real, but the chaos that we bring to a situation is also real. First, I want to break down what VUCA is. VUCA is volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. It's an old school business term that's been around for years. Business professors talk about it and they train executives on how to navigate these moments. Presently, it feels like we're in another VUCA moment with a lot of things shifting. You have AI disrupting how we work. Businesses are being impacted by policy changes globally. And so it's a lot going on. Along with that, there's sometimes things that we can be adding to a situation that exacerbates it or makes it worse. Or we're just going through our own personal life things that have nothing to do with the outside world, but it all intersects. So how do you navigate this when the chaos is coming from every direction? There's a few things that I personally would ask myself to start working through how I problem solve this. One, analyze if you're overthinking. A lot of times in a moment where a lot's going on, it's easy to get in your head and a tape starts rolling, right? It is the doomsday what if tape. Anything that can go wrong will go wrong on that tape. That's where feelings and imagination run over facts. The first thing I would say is this facts or feelings? And I would really get centered. If I'm still unsure about that, or I'm feeling a way, or I'm making an assumption that a situation is XYZ without facts, I typically use this worksheet by Byron Katie called The Work. And it's 4 questions. The first one is it true? And it's not like partially true or partially false. It's like, is it true? And then you move through the next 3 questions based on what you answer. That's Byron Katie, The Work, something that's really helped me get clarity and get out of overthinking. 2, procrastinating when I'm under pressure used to be one of my go-to things. It was like my safety mechanism, right? To procrastinate and think, if I just hold off a little bit longer, I'm gonna have more information and I can make the right decision. In a VUCA environment, it's very rare that you're going to have 100% of the data points that you need to make a decision. You're going to have to make a decision with the best information you have at the time, even if it feels uncomfortable. Now, I kind of joke with my friends sometimes when they're dealing with something and they don't have all the information. It's like, come on now, this is why you get paid the big bucks. You have to make the decision. You got to connect the dots. You have to lean on your past experience and the knowledge that you have to say, based on where we are right now, this is what we have to do to move forward. And you just have to stand on it and learn from it. Now, what I know about procrastinating myself is that anytime I start procrastinating, Procrastination's cousin, perfectionist, comes knocking at my door. Perfectionism shows up with the easy excuse to say, well, I can't do this because I'm a person who is known for doing the best, not making mistakes. I have to have this polished, always together, always buttoned up, I gotta be twice as good mentality. And while there is truth that for a certain portion of us in this world, we do have to be twice as good, leaning on that perfectionism can really stunt our growth. And it stunted my growth in many times. This self-sabotage of, I'm not going to do anything until I get it right. Reid Hoffman, who's one of the co-founders of LinkedIn, said that if you're not embarrassed by the first version of your product, you waited too long to launch it. The whole purpose is to take action. Action begets action. It helps you get momentum and get out of the stank funk of not making a decision. Now, here's the other thing. Many times when you feel like the chaos is coming at you from every angle, you might be overthinking the situation, playing into procrastination, perfectionism. What's probably close around is you're devaluing yourself. You're not recognizing the value that you bring to a situation. That doesn't just look like downplaying compliments. That means you're second guessing every decision that you make. When I get into this mode where I start second guessing myself, and yes, I do. I've shared this with friends at brunch before, and they're like, girl, do you really? And I'm like, absolutely. I sometimes downplay and second guess myself as well. What I have to do is I have to pull out the receipts. So I created this document called the Professional Achievement Portfolio, and it's free on my website. What I do is I have actually had to use this myself to show professional receipts. And when it comes to downplaying my value, sometimes I have to look back on what I have accomplished and say, no, you did that, girl, and you can do this too. And I'm not talking about just some wacky affirmations or some woo-woo positivity stuff. You got to stand on business and remember who you are. One of my favorite quotes from a mentor, Layla Delia, is, she remembered who she was and the game changed. I've sat with that quote for years. And anytime I have downplayed my value or not stood on the value that I bring, and I think about that quote and I go through that professional achievement portfolio, it's like putting on a really great bra. I can walk in and I can handle any problem. Even if I don't have 100% of the data, I can figure out the next path forward. What I'm saying is, if you don't have a personal brag book or personal achievement portfolio, you definitely need to get one. Along with this is a powerful question about saying yes. When things come at you, are you saying yes to everything and not practicing healthy boundaries? What I find that's closely related to not knowing your worth is trying to overcompensate when you feel unconfident and say yes to everything. That level of chaos is self-induced. You don't practice healthy boundaries, you overcommit and you burn out. It's just plain and simple. So, how do you turn the ship around if you've dealt with overthinking, procrastinating, perfectionism, not knowing your value, and even getting to a place where you say yes to everything? On the flip side of that, what I would do is create a list of my values, the top 5 values that matter most to me at this season of my life. Honesty, integrity, speaking up for others, equality, creativity. Just giving you that as an example. And then I would look at the situation and acknowledge, I don't have 100% of the data. I might have what I think is 75% of the data. What is my optimal outcome based on the information that I have? And I won't stop with the optimal outcome. I'll do optimal outcome and then plan B, okay? Kind of like what we see on these Instagram trends of this was plan A, but plan B, it actually turned out great. So for plan A and B, I would then say, okay, here's how I would strategically need to move to get there. And when I look at that strategic movement, I'm also going to be analyzing it a step deeper and saying, what values, here are my top 5 values, what values do I need to enact to get there? And if I only have one value, I got to go back to the drawing block. If I'm not incorporating at least 3 values into my strategic plan to get to optimal option A and B, it's not going to work. For me personally, if I'm not in alignment with my values, so much stress, chaos, I can't sleep, I get heartburn. It's like suffocating. So I know many of the listeners of the Winning Season podcast, you're the same. You're values driven people. So when you're creating these plans in a VUCA environment, you must certainly map out how they're aligned to your values. And then here's where resilience comes in. Plan B and plan A, sometimes we're not accounting for that 25-30% of information we didn't have. We get hit with a curveball, a 1-2. So you got to switch it up. How do we look at this risk that we're taking, assess it, and be able to move forward? As you get more information, then you adjust. That means you should be thinking about who your strategic partners are, whether this is a business event or something personal. What are the resources that you need, and how are you going to acquire those resources? And what it sounds like is, this is a lot of work, Jacqueline. I can't do this in 1 minute in my brain. No, you got to map this out. Get a whiteboard, get a notebook, your iPad, whatever, and map out your plan. That's how we get through VUCA environments. And that's how we find that elasticity to bend without breaking in these chaotic situations. We're having these honest moments of self-assessment, and then we're moving forward. Now, once your plan is in place, and maybe you've had to adjust it or tweak it based on the 25 to 35% of data that comes at you gradually, you have to keep moving forward. When I first started teaching the resilience course, I used to use this analogy. When you're driving to work and you come upon traffic, most of us don't call work and say, you know what, I quit. It's traffic. I'm not going to get there on time. What we typically do is, some of us might turn on the radio, others might pull up a website to see what's going on. We're looking at the GPS. Is there an accident? Is there construction? Etc. And then the next thing that we do is we communicate. We reach out to the person that's expecting us and we say, hey, this is what's going on. I'm still coming. It's going to take me longer. And then for most of us, we look up an alternative route. Can I get off on this next exit? Can I take a different path, even if I've never taken that path before? Will it get me to my destination? You become open to something in that moment that may have not been convenient for you before, or it may have been out of the way. But given now that you're at a standstill, going out of the way and going the longer route might be the optimal solution. Most of us do this when we hit a traffic jam. And then what happens next? For me, I distinctly remember a time when I was in Atlanta. I got stuck in traffic. I could see the exit. I could see it, but I had to inch closer and closer, less than 10 miles an hour. Slowly inched and inched and inched until I got there and I could get off that path. And sometimes when it comes to dealing with VUCA environments, that's how we have to tap into resilience. Resilience isn't always this strong, fast, quick bounce back. Sometimes it's slow and steady. It's having your eye on, I could get off right here and then I could get to the next route and start moving forward. But in the middle, that in-between phase, it's just inch by inch. So y'all, that's it for this episode. My intention with this new take of the Winning Season podcast is to help you find the win in any season. If you have a question that you want me to address on the podcast, please send it in on LinkedIn. Send them to Jacqueline Twillie, and also you can send it to me on Instagram as well. Until next time, I'm Jacqueline Twillie. Before I let y'all go, I have to thank our episode sponsor, Zero Gap and the Resilient Leaders Program. The Resilient Leaders Program is a 3-month intensive. It's where you come if you're trying to figure out your next move and you want the clarity, confidence, and strategy. Our next group starts in June. So if you'd like a free consultation to figure out if this program is right for you, head over to zerogap.co.